Hey guys, Chris from Propel here, and today we're going to be talking about the top low-step bikes for 2020. A low-step bike is really pretty similar to a standard frame bike, although it has a lower frame. So instead of having the top tube that you have to step over, the idea is that you can step through the frame, and it makes it much easier to get on and off of. These bikes are really popular for people that have knee trouble or if they have hip problems, and they can just step very easily in and out of the frame. Since electric bikes overall make bikes more accessible to more people, it only makes sense that you have more accessible electric bikes that make it easier to get on and off of, and make the bikes fit other riders. Maybe if you have a short inseam, it also helps with that because you're not too worried about what's normally called the standover height, because when you stand over the bike, maybe you don't have so much clearance with that shorter inseam. So you can have a bike that fits you and also isn't in the way when you're not on the saddle. So a lot of people really appreciate that. Now, I know a lot of you guys out there might be thinking, that's a girl's bike and I can't see myself riding that. But more and more, it's becoming very popular for these bikes to be considered unisex bikes and really fitting for men and women. And we encounter this concern from a lot of people, but I would just let it go because it's becoming more and more popular for men to ride low-step bikes. It just makes sense. Why should you have a top tube just because you're a man? I don't know. Not so necessary, especially considering the low-step bikes built these days are quite often just as sturdy as the standard frame style. So today I'm going to talk about our favorite bikes in our shop specifically. We carry a lot of different bikes, and low-step bikes are very popular. We deal with electric bikes specifically. We're talking about low-step electric bikes, and there's many different brands we offer. So I'm just going to kind of do it in alphabetical order and call out some of my favorites and some of the ones that you might want to consider if you're looking for a low-step bike for yourself. The first bike I'd like to call out is called the Benno Joy. This bike was developed by Benno, who is most well known for founding Electra Bikes, which became a very popular bike brand in the US. And now he launched his own new brand called Benno after his own name. And the E-Joy is just a comfortable cruiser bike. It's 26-inch wheels, relatively wide tires. It's kind of a mix between a beach cruiser and a city commuter. It's set up with fenders, rack, lights, everything like that. Now this bike has the Active Line Plus motor on it, so it's 50 Newton meters of torque. It's not as powerful as some of the other bikes on this list. So if you don't need that much power, if you're looking for cruise around town and looking for something relatively affordable, this is a great bike to consider. The next bike I'd like to call out is called the Bulls Cross Lite Evo. This bike's totally new for 2020. It's using the new Generation 4 Bosch CX motor. It's really one of the highest torque motors available on the market today. And this bike, it's kind of a hybrid bike, commuter bike, 20-mile-an-hour top speed, but it's 75 Newton meters of torque. So really powerful for getting you up the hills, standard derailleur and chain, and it has kind of a standard hybrid tire. It's like about 1.5 inches, so it's not very wide, but it's good if you want that more traditional bike feel and you just want a lot of extra torque for climbing up hills. And this bike's available in several different frame styles. It's available in the standard frame, the mid-step frame, as well as the low step, but specifically we're focusing on the low step today. And it has all the accessories on it that make it a really great commuter bike as well, with fenders, lights, rack, and all that. The next bike I'd like to call out is kind of a new class of low step bike, and it's a hardtail electric mountain bike low step. This is the Bulls Copperhead Evo HD, and HD for heavy duty. This bike's a low step bike, but it's also made for heavier riders. So it's a great consideration if you want an off-road bike that's a low step that's also capable of carrying a lot of weight. The 330-pound weight limit is much higher than what most bikes have of 250 or 275 pounds. Great consideration if you're a little bit heavier, or if you just want something really heavy duty that can handle some off-road riding, because that tends to put some more extreme forces on the bike's frame, and having a low step is quite often, it can make the bike frame not as strong. And when you have certain reinforcements, oftentimes bike manufacturers can make those frames still just as stable as a standard triangle. The next bike on my list has been very popular, and it's called the Gazelle Arroyo Elite. Now, this bike was originally just the Arroyo, and they made it the Arroyo Elite when they integrated the power tube battery. They made some updates to the frame. So now it's an integrated battery. It has a active line plus motor on it, so 50 Newton meters of torque. Not the most powerful motor, but really great for around the city and that sort of thing. I would call this bike really a Dutch commuter style bike. Now, Gazelle is a Dutch brand. They're set up really in this more upright sort of seating position. It has an adjustable stem, so if you want to sit really upright, that's a great bike for that sort of thing. I reviewed this bike earlier last year with Court from Electric Bike Review, and it's really an awesome bike. It has an internally geared hub with the chain case. Now, it doesn't have a belt drive as some of these bikes on this list have, but the chain case really keeps the chain very well protected. So it's a great type of bike if you're riding in a environment that's often rainy or dirty, and it keeps that chain really clean, especially when coupled with the internally geared hub on that bike. So great consideration if you want a great low maintenance, really easy to operate and very upright, comfortable style bike. So really nice consideration. The next bike, it would be considered kind of the value priced low step bike, and it's called the Gazelle Madeo T9. Now this bike is $2,500, and it's the least expensive bike on our list, and it's been very popular for us. It has the Active Line Plus motor on it, same as the Arroyo and some of the other models, with the 50 Newton meters of torque, which is a good baseline. You know, if you're a relatively fit rider, I think you can handle really the largest of hills. But if your fitness level isn't that high, you might want to consider getting a bike with a little bit more torque to it to give you an easier time on some of the larger hills. But really, for the most part, pretty much all these bikes will get you up the hill. It's just a matter of how fast and how much effort from you, the rider, it will require. Now, the Madeo T9 is available in a couple different frame styles, the standard frame as well as the low step. But as you know, this video is about low step bikes, we're going to talk about that. Now, this doesn't have the traditional wave frame as the Arroyo does, which has that second top tube, but it's much lower, so the entry is not as low as some of the other bikes, but it's still, from my book, considered a low step bike, and definitely a great consideration. This has a traditional derailleur on it, relatively upright seating position, and this has a rear rack battery on it. The next bike is the Gazelle Ultimate T10. This bike's been very popular. It's a really sporty low step bike. It's relatively lightweight, and it has the new Generation 3 performance line motor. Now this motor has 65 Newton meters of torque, which is pretty powerful. I mean, a 30% bump from the Active Line Plus motor, so you can think of it in those terms, like climbing some of those larger hills, you have a 30% easier time, particularly in the higher levels of assistance. So that torque is really helpful for those sort of scenarios. And also starting out, you get a little bit more oomph off the line, and a lot of people really appreciate that, especially operating in an urban environment, or you just want to have a more sporty bike and have that more active feel to the experience. So that's a great consideration. Traditional derailleur, but actually pretty high spec. It's a Shimano XT derailleur on there. It has a low travel head shock suspension fork. So the Ultimate T10 is great for somebody that wants that really sporty, active ride experience. Keep it pretty lightweight. Maybe you're coming from a road bike or something like that. Sure, this bike's going to have a wider tire on it, but you have an electric motor, so you're not really feeling that additional resistance you might get from that slightly wider tire than you had on your road bike. But really, the Ultimate T10 is really great if you're switching from a road bike or something a little bit more sporty. You still want that really sporty, active experience, feel the road with the slightly wider tires, but not as wide as some of the bikes. It has an adjustable stem, so you can adjust it exactly to the type of riding position that you want. If you want to ride more upright, plenty capable for that. But if you want to ride in a more sporty position, you can drop the stem down a little bit to get you in that more forward position. The next bike on the list is the Mustache Lundi. This bike is really special to me because it was introduced in 2011, in the same year that I actually started my shop. I've always been really drawn to this design, and I think a lot of people feel similar as well. It's got really simple lines to it, and it's got color match fenders, with these double wall aluminum fenders, a rigid fork, but the bike is still really comfortable, mainly because your ride position. It has these really special handlebars, which are unique to Mustache. They make them themselves, and you sit in this upright seating position, but most of the comfort comes from the tires. They're 2.35 inches wide. It's a 26-inch, and it's a balloon tire, so you can run them at lower pressure. You might be looking at that frame and thinking that it's not going to be strong enough, but they have a unique tubing that they use, and inside of the tube they have another round tube, and they have an X for additional rigidity. I'd also like to mention another new bike for Mustache. It's called the X-Road Open. Now, Mustache introduced several new low step bikes for their lineup this year, and one of the most popular ones is the X-Road, and it's available in several different models, and they have what's called Open, and Open means that it's a low step. It's a traditional low step, so really easy to get on and off of. This bike's really great for that all-terrain type of usage. It's great on-road, off-road, but it still has fenders, rack, lights, and everything else. So if you want a commuter bike that's also capable of some dirt roads and just going out exploring, this is a great choice. And up next we have the Mueller Nebo. This bike is actually the most popular low step bike in our shop, and partly because it's got so many different options, and it has a lot of features on it that you won't find on other low step bikes. One of them is it's available as a high-speed bike. That there are practically no other bikes on the market that are low step and high speed, or specifically with the Bosch motor. So I'm really excited about that. You can get the belt drive version with the NVOLO or roll-off hub, which is really cool. And it's also available with 2 batteries. So you have one internal battery and you have one external battery. And I have another exciting thing to share about the Nebo, because actually the day that we're filming this is the day after they actually just released that the Nebo 3 is now available. So the Nebo 3 is now with the Bosch Generation 4 motor. It's available with the CX motor as well as the high-speed motor. So both of those motors are really the highest performance motors in the Bosch lineup. And now they have an internal battery available as 500 watt hour or 625 watt hour, as well as the option to add an additional rear rack battery to extend the battery capacity up to 1125 watt hours, which is really large capacity. So if you're looking to do those really long rides, this could be a great option. So this is the sort of bike that you want to consider if you want a low step bike that's a high speed bike, you want a low step bike with a really large battery capacity, or you want some of these additional options like having a belt drive, or really just having a heavy duty bike that's capable of so much. I should mention, as I said, heavy duty, this bike is also available for heavier riders. So if you wanted to get the heavy duty package, it's able to accommodate up to 353 pounds because of its heavy duty pedals, the heavy duty saddle, as well as the seat post, which can accommodate heavier riders as well. The Nebo also comes standard with really wide tires, so it's the type of bike that you want to ride on-road, off-road. You'll really have no trouble with it, as long as you're not going on these more extreme mountain bike trails. You might start to feel some of the limitations of a slightly heavier bike that's not really set up for that sort of thing. But if you want to go on dirt roads, some light mountain bike trails, I think you'll find this bike to be really capable. So the sibling to the Nebo is called the Homogeny, and basically it's the Nebo with full suspension. So it has rear suspension as well as front suspension with all the same options, those wide tires, comfortable ride position. And this is really the only low step bike that we offer with full suspension, and one of the only ones on the market actually. It's also available with the NVOLO hub, the roll-off hub, with the high-speed motor as well as the CX motor for that really high torque. So it's a great consideration if you want a lot of different options and still have that full suspension and low step. Just great combo overall. A new addition to our low step lineup this year could be considered a low step bike, could be considered a compact bike, or maybe it's a combination of the two. It's called the Turn HSD. And this bike is really special in that it's compact, it can carry a lot, The cargo carrying capacity of the rear rack is up to 130 pounds. You can carry a small child or a small passenger on it, as well as all different other options to carry all sorts of cargo. So it's a really great bike if you want a compact bike, fits all different rider heights and many different drivetrains, including one that's fully automatic. And that's been very popular for us because I think some people just don't want to really shift. Really, most cars in the US have automatic transmissions, so why not on a bicycle? I think this is a great bike if you need something smaller that you maybe fit inside your apartment, you want to be able to put inside your car or SUV or something like that. Or another great thing about this bike is it can fit many different rider heights, starting somewhere around 4'11", 5 foot, upwards of 6'5". So having that ability to share between many different riders is a great ability of this specific bike. And the HSD also kind of has a big brother, which is called the GSD. The GSD is just capable of carrying a bit more, has wider tires on it. Both of them are 20-inch wheels, but the GSD has a 2.4-inch wide tire, up from 2.15 on the HSD. And the GSD can carry 200 pounds on the back of it, up from 130 pounds on the HSD. So although these bikes might not be traditionally considered low step, the standover, the entry is pretty low, so really easy to get on and off of. The last bike on my list starts with the X, and it's called the Extracycle E-Swoop. The E-Swoop is designed based on their traditional Extracycle Edge Runner frame, but they just lowered that top tube to make it easier to get on and off of. The E-Swoop is really popular for families. It makes it really easy to get on and off the bike when it's loaded up on the back, especially with that double kickstand, because the bike can stand up on its own even with kids on it, which is a really nice feature of that setup. The E-Swoop has a 20-inch wheel in the rear for lower center of gravity for cargo hauling, and a 26-inch wheel for a little bit easier handling and faster rolling. This bike is available with two different motor systems, the CX motor or the high-speed motor, as well as different battery options. You can get it with one standard 400 watt-hour power pack, or you can get it with up to two 500 watt-hour power packs for 1,000 watt-hours of battery range. So that's a really great option if you want to go long or use a lot of assistance. Maybe you're in a hilly area, that sort of thing. But it's definitely worth considering if you want a low step bike that's also capable of carrying a lot more with a 200 pounds weight capacity on that rear rack. So I think that's about it for my list. You know, we covered a lot of different bikes. It's certainly not all the low step bikes that are available on the market, but I wanted to discuss with you, some of the more popular ones in our shop so you can have some considerations if you're looking for a low step for yourself or maybe for somebody else. Now, you might also see these bikes defined as wave frame as well. That's also another name that's used for a low step bike. But overall, I think it's a great consideration, and I hope that you enjoyed this video and you found it to be helpful. If you have a favorite low step bike, or if you have any questions about low step electric bikes or electric bikes in general, leave them in the comments below or reach out. We're always happy to help, and I look forward to seeing you in the future. Well, see you soon.